Most people don't realize how much their personal information is being bought and sold every day. Data brokers are making billions pulling details about you from public records and the internet, and then packaging and selling it, usually without your consent. That's how your information lands in the hands of scammers, spammers, even stalkers. It's why you get endless robocalls and why ads seem to follow you everywhere. That's where Aura comes in. Aura actively removes your data from broker sites and keeps it off. They also instantly alert you if your information shows up in a breach or on the dark web. But Aura goes beyond data protection. With one app, you get a VPN, antivirus, password manager, spam call protection, dark web monitoring, and even up to $5 million in identity theft insurance, all backed by 24/7 US-based fraud support. Other companies might sell just credit monitoring or just a VPN. Aura gives you all of it, together, at the same price competitors charge for just one service. Start your free trial today at aura.com/remove. Protect yourself now at aura.com/remove.
Listeners of the Randomness of Nothing podcast, we talk about a variety of topics on this show, but I always think that technology is at the forefront of everything that we utilize in life. It's changed the way we've lived. It's changed the music we listen to, our music, the shows we watch. It touches every single aspect of our lives now. And I have here a very high-level expert on here, one of the co-founders of Cintara AI, Subodh Shetty. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rashad. It's a pleasure being on your podcast, and absolutely excited to talk to you about AI and the different things that we're doing at Cintara.
I very much appreciate it. I think sometimes when people hear it, there's the connotation of anytime something is big at a moment of an inflection point, it brings out emotions in people. So how do you, when it comes to this particular segment, let's talk about your background first and then get into how you ended up getting it ultimately into this company that you co-founded.
Sure. My background is pretty much building enterprise software for the past 30 years. I've been in this area, the DC metro area, throughout my career. Started off as a software engineer and then kind of build up on that stack. And then 10 years ago, I kind of moved to like the fintech and applied AI space. And that's what has been my experience for the past 10 years. And before I joined Cintara, it was at Amazon that I was leading some of the ML engineering initiatives there. And that's when I last met the founder and CEO of Cintara, Swapnil. And it was at Amazon that we talked about different things that AI was doing, because AI was being really hyped up, and think of ways we can kind of put some guardrails.
Right.
And that's what is interesting, because when we talk about AI, people are kind of, a little bit of apprehensive because they don't know what AI is doing. They don't want AI to go rogue, do things that you don't want to. That's what the thought was, to kind of put those guardrails in there so that people are aware of what the AI is doing, not only before it does, even after. So you kind of have an audit trail as well as prevent the AI from doing things. So that's at a very high level what we do. We put the guardrails so that we can kind of control, what AI is.
So real quick, where's the name come from? Because I couldn't find anything that was related to, Cintara. I just saw the Odyssey yesterday. So I was like, maybe there's something I could prepare myself for, that I hear maybe that name, if it's ancient Greek, and I couldn't hear anything. So how did the name actually come up?
Yes, the name itself, it's interesting, because Tara is it's a star.
Yes.
And we want to do something where it shows like a North Star, which kind of points,
beautiful,
where the direction is. And that's what, Cintara is one of the domains that we got. So it was,
Okay. Yeah. I didn't know if it was some ancient Latin verb that I just couldn't figure out, right? So that was always fascinating. And so I think that when people think of AI, they automatically start to think of privacy concerns, job losses, all of the negative things that are associated with it, that bring out emotions in people. And so, but it's also a very useful tool, because the speed of which things can be done, the complication of things that were, previously unattainable to people who didn't have a particular skill set, now have it at their disposal. When it comes to self-governance, I'm curious how that actually works. Is it just because that's the next level to get to it, or is it to stave off, hey, we're putting guardrails around ourselves early on just to let us know that we are protecting, proprietary and certain items related to businesses and people?
Yes. So the thing is, with AI, like you said, it's just a tool. And what people kind of forget is when the internet came on, or when Google came on, even then people were afraid that it's going to take away the jobs. And maybe it did, but it also gave a lot of people tools to kind of progress.
Right.
And right now, what's happening is very similar. So the big previously, like maybe like a few years ago, only the big companies could build applications
Correct.
or software.
Right.
Now anyone can do it. Even someone sitting remotely with no resources, he can build up an app. So that kind of empowers you. And yes, it's like a kind of shift, where people are previously just used to, having like 6 months to a year of runway and then building things. Now it makes it very simple. At the same time, when AI builds things, you are kind of skeptic and you're afraid. And there are some guardrails. What people typically do is before it goes to an AI. For example, you might have noticed if you're using ChatGPT, if you ask for medical advice, it says, "I'm not a doctor," and it stops you.
Absolutely.
So those are the guardrails which prevents the query from going in.
Right.
So what we are doing is the output of it, because people still kind of get around it. They say, "Oh, I'm a physician. You can still provide this diagnosis." There are these hacks.
Right.
But what we do is once the LLM answers it, we prevent the diagnosis from going back because we are saying, "Oh, no, you can't even do this." So our guardrails is at the output level of the AI.
Right. That's wonderful. Greg, how are you?
Great. How are you, Rashad?
I'm doing well. And we're just obviously nerding out right now, which is a fun moment when it comes to artificial intelligence. So the questions I have for both of you is that for the person that may be, I don't necessarily have the skills, but this has been something that's really opened up some doors for me. It's democratized a lot of things for people that were previously inaccessible. You don't necessarily have to go to that high level, $70,000 a year, coding, plat school, so to speak, to really get these skills. You just have to put in the work necessary to make these things work for you. And what, Subodh and I were talking about were small businesses, medium-sized businesses that were previously locked out of getting these really cutting-edge tools now have access and resources to.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, AI is really opening up new frontiers, new capabilities for a lot of people. And a lot of the previous limitations are gone. The learning curves are much accelerated, and it's just a huge disruptor across the board, creating huge opportunities and a few challenges. And the great thing about what we do here at Cintara is that we help people leverage more of the opportunities, but doing it in a safer, more responsible way, addressing some of the major challenges that come with AI.
Right. So obviously, there are challenges when it comes to, because typically in most government moves slow, private entities move very fast. How do you all, in a broad sense, I'm not going to ask for details, obviously, navigate those tricky waters by being an innovative company without sitting back and having those type of situations where somebody's writing legislation, somebody's trying to slow progress of very fast moving technologies? Because to your point, it can get dicey in those conversations.
Yeah, well, we can never wait for legislation because that's always the last one to show up at the party. And by the time the legislators get caught up with what's happening, technology has already moved on to the next thing. So the thing is, you've got to understand how to fully seize the opportunities that AI brings about. But what are the things that people are most concerned about? And they are basically preventing the AI from hallucinating or going rogue. Every week, there's a new publicized event of AI going sideways and how embarrassing or scary or risky that is. But for every event that's publicized, many more are not, either because people don't talk about it because it's embarrassing, but actually the majority is just because they've not even been detected yet. And so how do you let people use more AI for more mission critical operations and functions within organizations, but without basically unleashing it to be able to do harm or go sideways? So how do you secure it across the board? And now some of the AI companies have been developing some, what I would call embryonic tooling to help control some of their tools. When you ask them, they all say, of course, our agent would never go rogue, but unfortunately that's not true. And so we saw this, kind of did a horizon scan of this industry and said, well, really what the industry is needing the most, what companies are yearning for, is a technology neutral horizontal governance layer that can cut across all of your different tech stacks, regardless of whether you've got a few agents running on Amazon, some on Anthropic, some on Google, and some maybe using some other technology. You don't want to have different governance tooling across all of these that have different functionality that are only specific to those few agents. What you need is a horizontal layer that cuts across all your tech stack, allow you to govern these agents and make sure that they never misbehave. That's the idea and the concept behind Cintara. And we've developed it, started testing it across many use cases in many different industries. We've actually filed 3 patents around this. We're in the process of filing another. And it's really exciting to be solving such a real problem that nobody else has solved elegantly yet.
Yeah. And so the question I have for you, Subodh, is that are there particular industries that are in particular of need? Obviously, it's across the board. Hotels, airlines, production and manufacturing utilize them very well. But do you sit back and say this industry has, for lack of a better term, kind of been in the Stone Age a little bit, and it really is like, thank goodness for this platform and technology?
Yeah, so we are kind of platform agnostic. It's almost like infra as a service, like an infrastructure. But at the same time, I would think like right now we have a few pilots running on in the fintech area and health industry. So those 2 verticals are the ones which require a lot of compliance, and that's where I think the guardrails actually make sense. But at the same time, you could see, even for a very small company, like we talked earlier, where AI actually enables even small mom and pop shops to build their own applications. Say you have a small travel agent who wants to build an application which will just book tickets. So even looking at that, right, that's a very common use case. Instead of hiring someone else, you do it in-house, you build it. And guess what? That doesn't have any guardrails. So you say, oh, book me a ticket from DC to LAX. He'll just book it, even if it's like $2,000.
Right.
So what the current AI guardrails will do is prevent even the booking. It comes before you send it to the AI. You say, book a ticket, it's going to say stop. You don't have the guardrails on the outputs. What we do is, I say, book a ticket from DC to LAX, and then I have a policy behind it saying, do not book it if it's more than $1,000.
There you go.
So that's where the guardrails. It's in a very, very simple use case. So this will be a use case for a very mom and pop shop, and this we can kind of extrapolate to like the fintech and the healthcare industry. And it is huge benefits there.
Yeah, and I while you were saying that, it makes perfect sense at the pharmacies, right? Because they deal with so much medication of so many different people, and some medicines are very similar, and there's certain doses of a certain medicine that if you go, we all, have health things of something. You have to be very careful, and they process thousands of prescriptions a day. So if there's an agent that has those guardrails that says, don't prescribe Mr. Johnson more than this milligrams, and then you check that guardrail to make sure that prescription didn't go above that certain amount, now you have a good situation where you can speed up the transaction process for people while at the same time protecting patients.
Yeah, exactly. In that use case, say Mr. Jones is there's a guardrail right in front of him saying that do not prescribe like more than 20 mg.
Yes.
But then what if he does like 3 different prescriptions of 5 mg each?
Yes.
So that
Most people don't realize how much their personal information is being bought and sold every day. Data brokers are making billions, pulling details about you from public records and the internet, and then packaging and selling it, usually without your consent. That's how your information lands in the hands of scammers, spammers, even stalkers. It's why you get endless robocalls and why ads seem to follow you everywhere. That's where Aura comes in. Aura actively removes your data from broker sites and keeps it off. They also instantly alert you if your information shows up in a breach or on the dark web. But Aura goes beyond data protection. With one app, you get a VPN, antivirus, password manager, spam call protection, dark web monitoring, and even up to $5 million in identity theft insurance, all backed by 24/7 US-based fraud support. Other companies might sell just credit monitoring or just a VPN. Aura gives you all of it, together, at the same price competitors charge for just one service. Start your free trial today at aura.com/remove. Protect yourself now at aura.com/remove.
That's where the guardrails come in after the output comes out.
Beautiful, beautiful. And so I don't, and I think sometimes when people get scared about certain things, they don't realize how much that could save a life, how much that could treat a diagnosis or a medicine. I want to pivot real quick because I'm curious about the data centers. Like what, to the average person that's hearing these things, if they watch the sci-fi movies and they immediately think of the worst thing in the world, right? Like droids and bots that are going to be walking around like Will Smith, iRobot kind of situation, right? What exactly would people say? And then maybe Greg, this will pivot to you about data centers and things like that to kind of, put that in a more realistic sense.
Well, I think the issue is that people.
Yes, right. Of course. Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think, it's crazy sometimes that we love to use things that are easily at our disposal to use them for our benefit, but then we hesitate on the real world use. I mean, you love the fact that sometimes you have the thermostat in your house that can adjust to every single bedroom. You love your curated musical list. You love the recommendations from your various streaming platforms and services, or your car gets a diagnosis and you can start your car from your phone. All those things are AI agents that people love and use every single day. But then when they're kind of told kind of like the wizard behind the curtain, so to speak, and it's real to them, all of a sudden they're like, whoa, I'm a little like, well, you use it every single day. You use it every single day. Even you just don't know it.
Yeah. And even coming back to your data center point, right? So data centers weren't even there like before Amazon started doing like AWS. At that point, you couldn't see what the importance of the data centers. But then when a lot of people started using data centers, you kind of see how it actually is better for the environment. Because before that, people used to have it on-prem, and that was super expensive, a lot of waste. Whereas now with Amazon Cloud, you're kind of sharing it. So it's more efficient. Even with this, the benefits far outweigh whatever the drawbacks are. For example, you talked about using AI in different industries, like, thermostat and stuff. What about its use in like diagnosis? Right now, medical is so expensive. What if AI can make it so easy that you can just go it and get your diagnosis for free? Like there's so many untapped benefits in different industries.
Right. And two, also because, 80% of the population does not live in an urban district area downtown. So if you need telemedicine, if you have diagnostic medical tools, then you could, get mailed and get access to the doctor. Sometimes we think that where we live at is respective to how everybody lives, whether it's high speed internet, access to certain amenities. That's not the case for a lot of people. Every state, in your own state, you can go 10, 20 miles outside of your own crowded downtown district. And then next thing you know, you find out it's a completely different world. And so those tools that are democratized to allow it across the board are very valuable. A farmer, with crops and things of that nature and weather patterns, it could benefit them greatly.
Absolutely. I mean, especially when you said agriculture, AI can help improve the efficiency of their land. So you can have these crops at a low price range, and then guess what? Everyone benefits because food prices actually will drop. Right. So there's so much untapped potential.
Right. Yes, absolutely. Yes. Right. Mm-hmm. 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 What do you say now to and I'm going to pivot a bit, and maybe this question you guys don't know, or maybe you're just curious. What's going to do for higher education now? And I ask because now you have, this was not really a big field, obviously, when I graduated from high school. I got out in 2001, graduated in 2005. I remember when Facebook first came out in college, right? MySpace was big, right? Like, we're all going to date ourselves a little bit on this call, right? But having said all that, this is different because before it was accessible, it gradually made itself to certain segments of the population. Now you have a graduation, of all these kids who all they know is this type of stuff. All they know is the internet, cell phones, technology, streaming. They don't have yellow pages. They don't have blockbusters. What's this changing for the educational of a kid who's like a sophomore in high school, what they should specialize in when it comes to their field? And what's the future for them?
Yeah, so that's very interesting because right now we have actually spoken to a lot of these kids, like in some of these conferences that we go to. Mm-hmm. And these kids in high school itself, they are so used to AI that they are building stuff right there. Right. So at the same time, they need to be aware of doing it in the ethical way. So that's what the higher education would be on how to use it in the right way and make sure it's like things like agents going rogue. You need those guardrails. They can actually do today. I mean, I'm sure even all of us are using ChatGPT instead of Google now. Now, ChatGPT has become like the Google of today. And these kids growing up, they're already used to all that. And whereas us, we were not. We were like, we kind of
not even close.
Wouldn't let it into AI.
I was there when Yahoo was out, man. I was there when Yahoo was out. Remember that website?
Netscape Navigator was the one before the browser. Yeah, I remember those days. So think of like the kids now, they grew up with like ChatGPT. So it's endless possibilities and they can learn so much on their own. And whereas we had to kind of go to like do your graduate school to learn all these things. Whereas right now they have it in their fingertips, and you can actually educate yourself by someone who's so You can ask, no question is a stupid question. No one is judging you. You can ask whatever you want, and it helps with the learning as well. So I think when these guys come out of even high school, they are like so much more advanced than most of us with graduate degrees.
It's amazing. So yes, absolutely. Yes, I've said that for years, man. Yep. Yes. Right. You're getting that customized list that we talked about, right? Like so if I really do want to go in a particular field, I've got this particular field of skills that are better suited for my personality. I'm more alert. I'm more involved. I'm more engaged. Putting somebody who wants to be, a car mechanic in, a history class may not be beneficial for them long term to be able to get the best output out of them, right? That's just an example. That's kind of, just me throwing that out there. But if you curated, this is how you're going to be able to work on these particular set of skills from a computer, and it's going to be less physically taxing for you to do certain things, there's a benefit to them to being in these piloted programs to get these software and these skills that they need, and ultimately could lead them to have a higher success rate in graduations.
Yeah. And even this, if you're a car mechanic and suddenly now you develop an interest in history, it's easy to pivot because you have this patient teacher who's going to teach you everything that you want to know.
Exactly. When you're talking about self-governance and, obviously, there's the guardrails that are in place. Do you think that it's better that when they have these data centers that there are, that there's not one company that has the monopoly over the AI systems, and that could probably be beneficial for people to feel more comfortable that there's not one central company that owns all of the artificial intelligence and, these data centers or this technology that is used, because a lot of companies are pivoting towards it, that those are the guardrails that are in place because there are so many companies that are pivoting towards this particular set of technology, although yours is the first one that's already kind of self-governing itself.
Yeah, so there are a lot of options, even with data centers where you have decentralized CPUs. So it's actually like little machines which are actually not in machines, like processor on different, it's almost like a blockchain, right? Mm-hmm. Everything is decentralized. So not one person is controlling everything. Mm-hmm. So with the data centers, there are also, I think there's a company called Akash, which does that, which is decentralized compute. It's like a data center, but it's all running in different machines. So it's like Beautiful. Spread out. And that's what is going to be there, because a lot of these companies would try to monopolize, but then there will be a lot of other decentralized options as well that we will have. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, what we are doing, even for our governance, when we kind of audit it, one of the options is we do have the audit history available as a blockchain transaction. So that's the decentralized part, where any transaction cannot be changed. Once I say that Beautiful. This agent has done it, has done a certain action, that's persisted in the blockchain, which is actually decentralized. So anyone from anywhere can actually see and verify that that transaction was done by this agent. So those guardrails are also there, where it's like not controlled by one specific entity.
Greg, I want to ask you this. How is, the U.S. has its certain level of laws that are, that this is being implemented by. Are you guys right now just servicing U.S. customers, or have you, what's the navigation taking place when you start dealing with the EU laws, or even Canada or somewhere else? Well, where on paper, people would think, well, this should be something pretty simple to expand, but you have to navigate some of these different respective laws of them catching up to technologies like this. Beautiful. Mm-hmm. Right. Oh, yeah. Beautiful. Yeah, because that can get very tricky and dicey without having something like that in place. You have to deploy a legal team, and then God forbid somebody has to go there and implement it. And then if you're dealing with mountains of data, if you don't have something automated, eventually something's going to slip through the cracks, right? So having somebody like yourself and your team being able to sit back and say, no, we already have the right governance in place. We've already planned for this. It's only a benefit to the clients, the customers, and that's one thing that's taken off their plate. Yeah, definitely. And more importantly, like it's always about, you guys are a step ahead of asking those questions for people, because you already done your due diligence and your proper research. So that's not even going to be up for a discussion to be had, because you're already going to bring that to the table, knowing that this is part of what you're dealing. What does the future lie for the expansion of the company? Beautiful. Mm-hmm. Right. Would love to hear.
Yeah, because right now maybe we are tied to a few clouds. In the future, I would see it being like totally cloud agnostic, as well as data center agnostic. Going back to your previous question, right? So the decentralized data warehouse is actually one of the ideas that we were exploring as well, so that we can kind of be completely agnostic. And it's like totally decentralized and not monopolized by certain companies. So it's not concentrated.
Yeah, and you know what the beauty about it is that at the end of the day, this opens up a plethora of opportunities for people. If there was ever a time to really, dive your feet into that new venture, learn that new set of skills, be able to always have something at your fingertips. I mean, the process has been democratized more at the most basic level than it's ever been in the history of this country, right? People who typically had, location or it doesn't really exist with this type of situation. Obviously, there are other situations people could be dealing with, but the availability has never been at as available as it is right. And that is a huge benefit to people right now, particularly for skills and businesses. It's a huge benefit. It really, truly is. Is there anything that I haven't covered? And then the second question I have is, where can people find Cintara? They don't need the show to do this. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Beautiful.
Yeah. And to add to that, I just want to say, if you will be hearing a lot of these news articles where agents actually go rogue and do things that they're not supposed to, at that point, we just want them to remember Cintara.io is the one which could have prevented it.
Absolutely. And, like I said, I was really pumped for this call because there was, this is right up my alley. And obviously, I think that when you look at the future, it's always great to talk to people who are the innovators because, when you guys are on that news channel, I'm glad I got a chance to get an interview before the line got really crowded to talk to you all. So I want to thank you very much for your time. And it's been an honor to have you on the Randomness of Nothing podcast.
Thank you, Rashad. Thank you so much.
Most people don't realize how much their personal information is being bought and sold every day. Data brokers are making billions, pulling details about you from public records and the internet, and then packaging and selling it, usually without your consent. That's how your information lands in the hands of scammers, spammers, even stalkers. It's why you get endless robocalls and why ads seem to follow you everywhere. That's where Aura comes in. Aura actively removes your data from broker sites and keeps it off. They also instantly alert you if your information shows up in a breach or on the dark web. But Aura goes beyond data protection. With one app, you get a VPN, antivirus, password manager, spam call protection, dark web monitoring, and even up to $5 million in identity theft insurance, all backed by 24/7 US-based fraud support. Other companies might sell just credit monitoring or just a VPN. Aura gives you all of it, together, at the same price competitors charge for just one service. Start your free trial today at aura.com/remove. Protect yourself now at aura.com/remove.